Welcome to the Journey Mindfulness Podcast, where we explore the depths of human experience and the mysteries beyond. I'm your host, James O'Neill, a professional counselor and mindfulness teacher, and today our guest is Natasha Black. Part of her journey began at the age of 7 after a near-death experience profoundly shaped her understanding of life and existence. During this experience, Natasha gained a deep awareness of humanity's divine purpose and the boundless potential within each of us. Natasha has since dedicated her life to helping others connect with their spiritual essence, and she empowers individuals to unlock their divine potential and live a life of purpose. Welcome, Natasha, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me here. And hello to the audience. And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's begin. What happened on your journey when you were 7?
I guess I usually give a bit of context around my story to the fact that I grew up in a Christian world. So
Okay.
my my mum's family were Seventh Day Adventist. And that's how I grew up with those beliefs, going to church and all of those things. And, then I'll skip to the near death experience since that experience. And since then, it's just been a lifelong journey to uncover what truth is for me, what is the spiritual truth and, just seeking basically. So, yeah, when I was 7, I was at my cousin's place in Sydney, and I also was born with asthma. So, this particular day, we were out in their backyard playing as we usually did. And, I'm allergic to wattles and pollens and things like that. With my asthma, it triggers. So, yeah, this particular day, I was triggered by those, and sometimes physical activity can trigger it. So a combination of those things set me off with a asthma attack. And for a while, I was breathing through it. And, then I exited the fun with the other children and went upstairs to try and get my asthma puffer. And I didn't bring it that day. So, we were looking all around the house, and anyone that's got asthma will understand that once you know that you don't have a relief, it, kind of sets you into a panic, which obviously makes it worse. So, yeah, we kind of entered that phase of it. And, in the background, my parents are talking about, okay, what's plan B? What are we going to do? We were a little while from the hospital, so couldn't find a puffer all around the house. My cousins didn't have asthma, but my auntie was still going around looking to see, do we have something by any chance? And so my parents made the call to go to the hospital. So my dad drove me to the hospital. I was sitting in the passenger seat. My uncle was in the back directing us to the hospital. And, obviously I'm in the front, like trying to grasp for breath. Was becoming more laborsome. I was panicking, and I just wanted to, to cry and to relieve the pain. I could remember my dad just putting his hand on my back, trying to keep me calm. And so, I was trying the best that I could, and then it just got to a point where I couldn't anymore. But at that point, I remember I stopped feeling the pain of it. It was just like, oh, I'm just tired. I just felt this overwhelming. I just need to put my head down, like I'm just sleepy. And I said that to my dad, I just need to put my head down in the middle center console of the car. And he's like, no, don't, stay awake, stay with me. And he's yelling at me in the car at the top of his voice. And and I couldn't fight it. So I closed my eyes. But my dad said, he looked over, my eyes rolled back, and, my lips were blue. And so he decided to, do you want me to pause? Did you have a question to ask, or you want me to keep going?
No, you're doing well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my dad made a, split decision to make a bit of a detour because we were losing time. So my uncle said, or he either said or they saw that there was a correctional facility close to where we were at the time. And so they swerved around, made a detour to this correctional facility. My dad, screams out the front of the gates and stops and says, does anybody know CPR? And so one of the inmates said, I know CPR. And so he was allowed to actually come in the car with us, and he was permitted to come in the car with us and perform CPR until we got to the ambulance station, which is when they took over, and then defib, screamed me to the hospital, and then that's that. So that's that part of the story. And then, at the hospital, that's when, I kind of went above my body and saw everything happening from above. And yeah, so yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, what that was like, so you get into the hospital. Is that the point where you become conscious again and you realize you're looking down on your body, or what happened?
Yeah, so I the last thing I remembered was putting my head down in the center console of the car. That was it for me. And when my dad was screaming, I could hear his voice faintly, so it was very distant. And I was just kind of fading away. And then and then the next thing I remember was um my consciousness floating above my body in the emergency room where they were trying to revive me. There was doctors and nurses everywhere. It was like I was watching a movie from above. I could see how many people were there. I could hear the conversations. I could feel the emotions in the room, like how they were feeling. It was like a professional panic, I call it.
Mm.
Um, and at one stage, but I was unattached to, I knew that I had died at that point. I knew that was the truth, but I was unattached to, it was like I was watching the avatar of me, but I wasn't attached to it. I knew it was me, but the fact that I had died, it wasn't upsetting me. I didn't have any emotion. It was just like, oh, just like watching a movie, as I explained. But during that time, at one stage, the doctor had come out into the hallway to speak to my dad. And he said, it's not looking great. I don't think she's going to make it. And if she does, she's probably going to have brain damage.
Yeah.
She's going to be impaired. So, I heard that whole conversation and I recounted that to my dad once I had come back into my body. And he is like the biggest skeptic ever, um, which I kind of appreciate. Sometimes I think healthy skepticism is good.
Yeah.
Uh, but and sometimes people are skeptic because they don't know what to feel about it. They don't understand how to place it, and I understand that. So he was looking at me, and I was recounting every word that the doctor said to him in the hallway, and he said, "How could you have not known that? There's absolutely." And I told him,
Yeah.
I heard it. Like, I know what was happening. I was watching from above, and he still to this day is like, I believe you. I get what you're saying, but I just don't know how that's possible, or I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, um, that was that part of it that I remember. That the part when I was entering, I guess that space was it's kind of a separated piece of it. I remember being in the backyard of my cousin's place, and there was like a tunnel where all these beings were kind of lining this path for me down in their
Mhm.
backyard, and they were like demons and monsters. I think it may have been my subconscious, but I don't know. I don't know what that is to this
Yeah.
day. But all I could see was this path, and me standing at the start of the path and knowing that I had to walk through because I could see just a pin of light. And I knew that I wanted to walk towards that pin of light, but all these demons were trying to grab at me on the way.
Mm.
Anyway, I'm like escaping them, one by one. But the more I was walking, the further away they got. So then I was able to walk to the light. The light got brighter. And
So
then
you were by yourself walking towards the light. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And it was like a magnetic pull. I just knew that I had to walk to there. Something was calling me there. And yeah, once I got into the light, then I entered the famous, unconditionally loving space,
Okay.
pure light and consciousness that everybody talks about. I mean, I've listened to hundreds of NDEs.
Yeah.
I find other people's stories just as fascinating. Um, just what they experience, it helped me actually along my journey to place my experience and understand it. So thank you for the work that you do, because people like you are able to help us put the pieces of the puzzle together as well. So, we need to kind of process all this information, and hearing other people's stories really does help. So yeah, so then I was in this space, and straight away I just thought, "Oh, I'm home. Like this is incredible. I'm home. Like this feels like the most natural thing and place ever to exist." And it was just this, yeah, just this state of pure consciousness. There's no judgment, there's no emotion. Sorry, if you have a question, please
Yeah,
interrupt.
no, I was just say you I remember hearing you tell the story before. It's like you didn't have that attachment to the body and to this physical world. Like you
Mhm.
felt completely comfortable where you were at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, completely comfortable. It was just like, yeah, this is the most natural place to be, more than, back in my body with my family and everything that you think that feels familiar. The familiarity is actually in this realm,
Yeah.
um, where I believe we begin from. So
I think a lot of people struggle with that is when you are in that space, we think it's the worst thing in the world to be torn apart, or how we might view it from our loved ones and friends in this world. And yet there's this other home that's,
yeah,
filled with love. And it's not quite that. There's this, in a sense, illusion that exists.
yeah, for sure. And I'm very careful as well to express this. There's always follow-up things that I will say, because I understand the grief journey, and this human experience is still real. Like on the macro level, it's not, but on the micro level, it is, and we still miss loved ones, and we still have those feelings of like, but they're not here physically, and even people may understand that. I know that they're still here. I know that they're just in the next room and in another realm, but I want them here with me
Yeah.
physically. So, I'm very sensitive to sharing that information as well, because I don't want to be the kind of spiritual person that discounts, the human experience, because it's all of it. It's not just these realms that are real, it's all of it together. And I think that's our human journey is to find a way to integrate everything
Mhm.
into the one and not judge one against the other. It's like, how can we have it all exist at the same time? Because in that realm that most people go to, it is everything existing in the one. So, I think the human experience is to kind of learn and remember how to kind of go back to that state, or just how to accept everything as one. So, yeah.
So and you just used the word remember, but was it when you got there, was it instant remembering of kind of who and what you are?
Yeah, like immediate. It was immediate. And that's my experience. I have listened to some where there's confusion and things like that. So obviously there's intricacies in, each person's experience. But yes, for me, and I know many others, it's like an instant remembering of, oh, I'm pure consciousness. I'm pure love. I am a creator. And I know that's controversial to some religious folk. And, I don't mean to uh, offend anyone, but, I'm here just sharing what I experienced and what I know to be
Mhm.
true. And I think if we all have open discussions, we can kind of go on this truth journey together. But yeah, it's an instant remembering. You know that you can create within a second. Like your thoughts are literally creating form. Like whatever you think is being created. You know, it's like everything. So everything exists at the same time. So yeah, it's a very interesting state to experience. And
Yeah.
part of my journey now is to show people how they can experience that without dying.
Yes, but before you get into that,
Yes.
was there a decision that you had to make to come back,
Mm.
or how did that play out?
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes these conversations can go on like, it's kind of split because there's so many layers and
Oh, I
dimensions.
know.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we do get off track. Right, thank you for pulling me back on.
all
Thinking,
good.
I can't go home. This is my home. And at that time, I remember it was like a collective set of voices that said to me, you can't go home, back there. Sorry, you can't stay here. You have to go back. And I was like, no, are you kidding? Like, no, I don't want to go back. I can't. This is amazing. I want to stay here. And they said, no, you have to, because you have a big mission and you have a lot of people to help back there. And even though that was said to me in that way, I still remember feeling like I had a choice. If I really wanted to push back, I could have. And so I remember feeling that I knew that. And, but once I had heard that I had a mission and I had a purpose for my life and I was going to help a lot of people, it was like I went, okay, all right, that's fine. If I've got a purpose, then I'm happy to go back. And then that was it. It was literally, I was back in my body. And then that was that. And then since, I kind of woke up back in my body I was a little girl, I was growing up, all I wanted to do, all I used to say to people is, I just want to help people. I
Really?
don't know what I want to do, but I want to help people. And so I used to go through all these professions growing up. You're at school and people are saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like I explored being a nurse, I explored being a doctor, a physio, any professions that would help people. But yeah, now I understand that, this is my way of helping people. And, I also came out of the experience heavily questioning the religion that I was brought up in.
What what would you say, do you know who the voices were, or what the voice was that you were communicating with in your
Mhm.
experience?
Yeah, I feel like the state that I was in was that pure presence, which I call God, the all-knowing, all-existing, everything is everywhere. But the voices, I believe, were my guides, and I know we have multiple guides through our life, but specific ones that kind of help us remember our mission. And I think because of the mission, the tie to the mission, I feel, and I've explored for years now, my relationship with the Pleiadians.
Hmm.
And so I believe that the collective voices were my guides, the Pleiadians, which I, had come from before here. I think all of us have come from different places,
Yeah.
before think I'm special. So yeah, I believe it was them. And yeah, it's hard to explain why I feel like that. It's just my exploration and my journey into remembering and hearing other people's stories has
Well,
helped me together. Mm.
could be part of your gift, the is that clairvoyance? Is that like knowing,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you
And
just know?
you just get full body resonance, then multiple backed up by multiple synchronicities and all of this. But, even I always say too, like it doesn't matter who it was. It's just really about grounding what it is I'm here to do. So it doesn't matter who it was or what happened then. It's interesting and I love it, but also grounding that into, okay, well, what is the main thing? The main thing for me is to share messages of love and unity and, what is on the other side and who God really is. So yeah, I like
I
to ground.
love that you said that. There was in one of my episodes, it's titled "What is the main thing?" And it's love,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And integrating that, and the Palladians do, it can be sort of sensational to kind of to learn about them, but they do have they work with a lot of healers and helpers.
Yeah.
It's one of their reputations.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's been a fun journey to explore and certainly one that's out there and one that I've gaslit myself so many times during. It's like, oh, am I making all this up? Like, is this real? But even to that, I still say to myself, well, even if it's not real, it's still helping me ground important information, which is bringing it back to love. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is the main thing.
Well, now, did anyone try to talk you out of kind of your experience, or were you able, at such a young age to like really hold on to that? I mean, it sounds like
Mm.
maybe you did, but
Yeah, it's so when I it's a lot to process as a child, that experience and what's going on in your brain. And I think I came out having a lot of questions. But it was like I had to kind of go on that journey silently alongside still going to church and still having those practices at home. I just kind of had to silently go on that journey every time I would ask certain questions, and it's no one's fault. They just couldn't be answered where it would satisfy my soul. It's like, it's still something doesn't feel right with that answer, or it was met with stop asking so many questions. You just have to have faith. And, again, that's no one's fault. It's just that's the belief system. That's like you just have to have faith. So I totally get that. And so, I kind of just I just for many years I couldn't satisfy that thirst of um asking these questions and having them answered. And I then when I got older, I used to say, but I need to have these questions answered to have faith. I can't go on because of what I've experienced. But to my near death experience, and maybe it's something to do with how I was brought up with the religion, I didn't really share the experience for a long time because
Mm.
I didn't know what to think about it. I knew that I experienced it. And then, to be honest, it was about 10 years ago. I had shared it here and there, but it wasn't really common knowledge to people around me
Mhm.
of my actual experience. They knew that I died of an asthma attack, but they didn't know what my full experience was because I hadn't really explained it to that depth because I didn't know what to think about it. And it was about 10 years ago. A friend of mine at the time, she pointed me to Anita Morjani, and
Uh,
she said, "Have you heard of Anita Morjani?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Oh, she's incredible. She shares about her near-death experience." And so I listened to her and I was like, wow, like this is everything that I experienced. Yes, I agree with that. Yes, yes, yes. And then that was it. It was like, then I just went on a quest of listening to so many stories. And, there wasn't as many as what there are now stories out there, but I still found them. And it just gave me more context to my spiritual path
yeah.
and journey. And yeah, it's been really fun. But yeah, again, like hearing these stories of other people, it just helped me understand what it was that I experienced, and place it in, oh yeah, okay, now I'm understanding like who God is and what my experience is. And yeah.
Now, were you in the helping profession at that time or healing or
Yep, I was doing massage. I was doing healing at the time, and definitely coaching to some capacity. But I, at that time, I was a stay-at-home mum at the time, really. So I was actually in a network marketing company at the time. This was before I started, because I went into massage when I was a little bit younger, after I left school and went away from it, and then I came back to it once my kids were in daycare. And so I was a stay-at-home mum at the time when I came across Anita Morjani, and then, that really propelled my journey forward more.
yeah. Now, did you have was it another experience or when you were pregnant or am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, so when I was pregnant with my second child, I had the words loaded, but I had an abduction experience. So, I don't like to necessarily use that term, but it's the only term that I kind of have to give context. But I was asleep in my room next to my husband, and I remember being woken up. My eyes were kind of shut, and so I knew that I was awake. It's like if you're meditating and you know you're awake, but your eyes are shut. It was like that feeling, and I couldn't open them. It was like but it wasn't forced close. It's difficult to explain. And I knew that I was definitely awake, and there was this magnetic, bright light shining in my room. And the first thing I knew was, oh, my husband's going to wake up, and like, what is this? Because I knew straight away, all at the same time, that I knew what it was. And before this, I had never listened to any abduction stories. It wasn't something that I was into at all. I used to think, no, this is conspiracy stuff. So I had never delved into any of it. I had no idea. But I knew at this point what it was. This was an abduction, and I was going to be taken. And I was saying in my mind, no, 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 like I don't want to go. And these calm, collective voices were saying, yes, it's okay. Um, we're not here to hurt you. It's fine. Like, you'll be safe. And again, I was thinking like, but my husband's right next to me. What if I'm gone and he wakes up and I'm not there? And, so I was going through that frame of mind. And in the next moment, I was in this ship in this place, and I was on this metal. It was like a very cold, sterile room. It felt nice, but it was just like sterile. There was nothing, no nice furniture around. And I was on this cold metal bed. There were cubicles all around me, and I knew there were other people, but I didn't see them. The next thing I knew, I was laying down on this bed. And I saw that at the end of the bed to the right, there was about uh, seven beings around me. And now I know to explain them as tall, white, Nordic looking beings. They were very much humanoids, so looked like us, but just very pure, just they were wearing white, like coats, and some of them had like a clipboard.
Are these
And
considered Pleiadians?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I believe now. Yeah. So, but yeah, I never knew anything about anything. And so, years later, when a friend of ours, he was very much into UFOs and aliens, and I said, yeah, I had this dream once, and he's like, well, that's a very common abduction story. I'm like, what? So, and then I was like, oh, was it real or was it not? So anyway, I'm on this bed, and it was like if you go to hospital and there's students, at the end, and they're taking notes. So it was like that. But there was a couple that were next to me, and they said, we're just going to insert this device, or this like do some kind of a procedure. And it was this long metal syringe.
Okay, that would have
And
been terrifying.
yeah, I wasn't scared. It was like the most scariest part was when I was in the bed and I was saying, no, 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 I didn't want to be taken up. But it was like as soon as I was there, I was comforted. They were speaking to me telepathically, like, you're safe, and I felt safe, like it didn't feel wrong. And so with this cold metal syringe, I don't remember feeling any anxiety around it, but they did say it's not going to hurt, but it's going to feel uncomfortable. And so they inserted it into my belly button, and it was cold and it was uncomfortable. It was like if you kind of push the inside of your belly button, and yeah, it just felt really uncomfortable. And then they said that was it. It was very quick. And then they gave me some kind of headphones, and they said it was classical music. And I know this sounds so crazy,
We're
but
already down the rabbit hole.
oh, I know, it's so funny. I listen to myself sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, this is just like, anyway. So they gave me these headphones, and they said, just listen to this music and, wait for the integration. So it was like, yeah, this was an integrative experience. I guess just like if you do sound healing and you kind of integrate that. And they said, you'll be here for about half an hour and then you can go. So that was it. They left. I didn't see them again after the
What,
music.
Natasha, what was it? Did they, because I'll share with you something else that another experiencer just shared. Like I had, her name was Jacqueline Smith, and she said that when her mom was pregnant, if I'm saying this correctly, she was injected with DNA. And so she considers herself a hybrid, but they were, there was like something to do with DNA with the injection. But what do you know what they were doing? What was that about?
Yeah. So on my journey, I've channeled and journaled and gone into this myself to try and understand what was it. I've had, what do you call it? Regressions. I've
Yeah.
had hypnotherapy to try and uncover what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that the device that was implanted it's like a capsule. So it's like you can't really pick it up physically, but it's on a different frequency. So it's this capsule that is in my body to help me remember certain things and awaken my DNA. So whenever I'm ready for another integration, it's like there's a switch that goes on and it awakens more of my DNA to remember and stay on track, remember my path, open up more of my gifts, help with the healing and ascension of humanity.
That's very interesting. That's kind of what Whitley Strieber describes
Oh, okay, that's
with
interesting. I've never heard of that.
his he's had some of his you know, I don't know, X-rayed or MRI, whatever they do. But they've opened him up, and so he has, I believe I'm saying that accurately, certain
Um,
gifts. But yeah, that's
did
interesting.
they find anything physical, like
There
in
was
the
a
lab
like
and
an
implant?
implant in his ear,
Oh.
but there was no incision.
Mm.
And then they kind of went in, and then it like dropped down, and they kind of gave up trying to get it. And then I don't know. I think there's some other things too that I'm not fully versed in his story, but I just saw that. So it was interesting to me when you said something about the implant and upgrading your
Yeah.
DNA. That is interesting to me.
I'll have to listen to his story. What's his name again?
Whitley Strieber.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I love these confirmations. Um, so after this happened, I I didn't breathe a word of this to anyone, not even
Sure.
my husband. I may have said I had this, really weird dream. And so it wasn't until my friend opened up and I was like, we were all quite open in the conversation. So I felt safe to share. Yeah, I had this weird dream one night. And anyway, after that, he made me start thinking, oh, maybe I should listen to some abduction stories. And so I did. And I was like, whoa, okay. And it wasn't until 2 years ago, I was listening to one podcast, I wish I could find it again, of this woman who her story was 98% the same as mine. The cold metal syringe, the implant, everything was like, and I couldn't believe it because even up to that point, I was like, yeah, it was definitely not a dream because the other part of the story is I woke up physically in my bed and I felt my belly button and it felt like it had been tampered with.
Mm,
Like it felt like something was inserted in there. So I knew that
yeah.
it was beyond a dream. It was definitely not just a dream, but I still didn't quite believe it. There was a lot of this story that I thought, "Oh, man, I can't share this, like, this is so unreal," it's just, who's gonna believe me? And the other part of me was like, "Well, why share it? I don't really see the point." But
You
then
know,
listening
s-
to more of the stories and this other woman, I went, "Okay, this is something definitely happened here." So I kinda started taking it a little bit more seriously. And then just noticing how my two experiences are kind of linked with my purpose and helping humanity heal. So it is linked. It's like every time I've had these experiences, it's like a memory jolt,
yeah.
like they're helping me remember and stay on track.
Well, I do regression work, and
Oh,
um, you know, at least the ones that I've encountered, usually they have been more positive, where
mm,
it's, kind of tidying things up or helping things heal in this way or that, or
Wow.
or upgrading and, allowing for, I guess, more abilities, kind
Yeah.
of, which are built in already, but just to come out maybe a little bit more enhanced.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And yeah, sorry, please go.
no, I was just gonna say, I know it takes a lot of courage to share a story like that, but it's also in the way that I think NDEs, near death experiences, help people look at death differently in
Yeah.
their relationship with fear and death.
Yeah.
Also, these experiencer stories are helpful too because a lot of times people, they withhold them, they inhibit them because they're
Mhm.
afraid to talk about it, and
Yeah.
so it's also very helpful. It all goes back to the main thing too, right?
Yeah, it really does. And I love playing in the esoterics and all of that, but I am always careful to bring it into, well, what's practical about this. I'm not just sharing esoterics just to be esoteric. It's got to have some purpose and some practicality of like, well, why? Why is it? Why are we having these experiences? But yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot more people come out and share stories like, abductions and kind of help us soften the walls of the fear around this topic. And I think that's, starting to happen now. We're starting to just go, okay, yeah, aliens are real, and then, it's going to evolve in the next 20 years. But it is, when everyone's been brought up in a world where the unseen realms are fake, that there's a lot of conditioning here to break down until we're comfortable talking about these things. But, a big part of my journey too, to feel comfortable to sharing it. And I have to say, I'm not fully comfortable sharing with the people that I know, like, or the people that know me. I share openly on these podcasts because I think, oh, most people will probably never watch these that I know. But if they do, it's okay. It's like, constantly a journey of just letting go of this. But I lost my train of thought there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be breaking down these walls slowly. And yeah, and going into ancient wisdom was a big part of my journey in sharing more of this comfortably, because going into ancient wisdom and history has shown me that people were working with other beings. There was UFOs, like, all out in the open, like, it's not a fake thing. So
Okay, so where are we going into mystery schools here?
oh, yeah, we can, wherever you wanna go.
Well, I mean, it's all interesting to me. Obviously, this podcast is called Journey Mindfulness. And I really appreciate how you're talking about, this is the esoteric stuff, but really the moment is here in the body, in
Yep.
this physical world, or this density. But there is this sort of ancient, rich history that we in some ways have forgotten or we don't remember for
Yeah.
various reasons. And, there's people like you that are bringing it back, really. And so, yeah, we can go wherever you want with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all linked. It's all linked, and so we can take a bit from history, a bit from, these other realms, and a bit from this and a bit from that. Everything is linked and will complete the full story, and is completing the full story. But humanity have to be open to hearing more out of the box thinking. But, I'm very careful to, and I'm always here to say, like, if I'm wrong, I will admit it tomorrow. Like, we're all on the journey of seeking and finding the truth. But I have gone into ancient mysteries in history, and it's just fascinating with what they knew about themselves, about their ability, their, telepathic communication, their abilities to, use energy. And, Jesus was a big part of that journey. And, for many years I had an aversion to Jesus or God, but I've understood him now as I've gone on my journey, that who he really was. Um, and it's my belief that he was just a uh, being that came back to show us what we're capable of, in essence, and that we can do all these things. We can perform miracles. We can heal on that level. We can show unconditional love. And through that, we open up realms. We can manifest. We can, unlock our DNA and know what our human potential is. So yeah, it's been such a fun journey, and still is. I'm still seeking every day. But I believe that, people like him were just to show us what we can do, and that, even himself said that he doesn't want to be worshipped. He's just showing us the way. It's not that he is the way, but it's not that we have to worship him or he's our savior. It's just that follow what he thought, follow how he lived, and we can also access those realms within us, and beyond.
So tell us about kind of what work you're doing with that.
Yeah, so last year and the year before, I was sharing a lot of uh, that ancient history, or just touching on it. I'm not your person like I'm trying to think, like Billy Carson, or they remember facts and they're very good at remembering timelines and things like that. I go into all of that, but I remember the points that I need to, just enough to kind of touch on it to show people that we're capable of more. And then if they want more scholarly information, then I'll lead them in that path, and they can really study it, on a scientific level. I love Greg Braden as well. He's really helped me understand who I am and go on this journey as well. So I touch on these people and what they've shown me to kind of draw a picture of who we are. Um, my main work is to show people what their infinite human potential is.
Mhm.
So, that's through spirituality, that's through ancient history, that's through channeling, intuition, healing, how you can be a master of yourself, your emotions, and your energy. So, in essence, that's what I share in the mystery school. And this year, still doing that within the mystery school membership, but it's taking a I've realized that I had to break it down a little bit further, because sometimes these concepts can be so big and so overwhelming that people don't know where to start. So
Yeah.
I realized that I'm going too big and like just need bite-sized chunks of information, which is hard because you get excited because there's so much to share. And yeah, so
Yeah.
this,
And
yeah.
I think that's part of your gift too, is kind of what I've heard you share online, is making it simple. And okay, you mentioned timelines and how that could be overwhelming, and breaking it down, and well, let's just choose a path.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to I want people to understand concepts, and that's, I know what I'm the best at describing. It's not the actual information, because I do forget, intricate details. I don't retain information like that, but I understand concepts, and I'm always trying to bring it to a practical level. And yeah, this year uh, is sharing more of how people can have experiences like leaving your body. I've done that in meditation. So leaving your body and experiencing that oneness presence without having to die. So, I'm kind of wanting to bridge more of that work and showing people like who God is, or what is this presence, or how can we connect to the truest part of ourselves? How can we become a master of the self? So kind of breaking down these experiences to showing other people, oh, you can experience that too. It's not that I'm or the next person is special because we've had a near-death experience. We're just messengers coming back to show you and to explain, like, this is already something that you can access. It's just we have to find the way to do it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big focus of my work.
Well, do you find that sharing your story, I mean, like, for me, and I've had some experiences too, so I'm not afraid of death. I think, say that pretty confidently.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, so many people that I've seen in my counseling practice, a lot of people, they live life in fear. And a lot of that fear too is, to try to play it safe, or, there's this huge fear of death, and rightfully so, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be, not sensitive to that. But
Yeah.
do you find that people that hear your story, um, kind of buy in?
Yeah, I know that I have comforted people around me by sharing my story.
Yeah.
But sharing that the main thing they get from it is, oh, they're not gone and wiped from everything. They are still there. It's just, and it's still hard to process death in this realm, but they understand, like, oh, they're not really gone. Like, I can just speak to them, and I can just, I think part of the biggest message here too is that we have to open our awareness to relationships, and like we can have relationships with people on the other side. It's just redefining what that looks like, and going, in between realms, and you can have that. It's just, and it's not going to be the same, but nothing ever is the same. It's all, yeah. But I think opening that awareness, and I've got a book coming out actually, which I was approached towards, I think the middle of last year to share my story. It kind of came out of nowhere, and all all of these people, it's a collaborative project, but all of these people are sharing their stories for this purpose. It's to help redefine death and to help give hope to humanity, um, and to help them not be afraid so much to die. And I understand it. I would have to say sometimes I get these thoughts of dying in a certain way. It's weird. There's weird thoughts that come in my brain sometimes. That terrifies me a little bit, but the actual process doesn't scare me because I know that we never die. And actually, there's so many cultures, and back in ancient times, it was a privilege, to go through this experience. It was like an initiation. So it's very interesting, how
To
we've
have a near death experience, or
you die.
Mm.
So, it was very much celebrated. It's like, oh, your soul is now on the next journey and the next step forward. Like, this is so exciting. They would still obviously grieve, but it was more of a celebrated thing. And there's some cultures today that still do that. It's like, because they understand that death is not
Yeah,
the end. Their soul is taking the next path on their journey. So it's a celebration.
there was a really, good book that I read when I was younger, and I'd been exposed to meditation and reincarnation, and was living in Asia, and it was called Good Life, Good Death by, I think his name was Lama Rinpoche, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it was just like, death is not something to be feared. It's like to be embraced, and, it's like this really beautiful thing. You've been on this journey, and you're going home in a sense, and, don't be afraid. It's really, I think, you know, you sharing your message, of your story and your experience is really a message of hope.
Mm. Yeah, this is what everyone in the book wishes to get it across as well. It's like it is a message of hope, and hopefully it will just help someone grieving or processing their own fear around death. That it's just really to open our awareness to other things that are possible, and that death isn't final. And it's I'm reminded in a lot of healing sessions I do too that or my clients are reminded that is that when loved ones come through and have messages to share, we're saying they're still here. It's they're not gone. They're always here. It's just now keep the relationship, but you just have to redefine the relationship with them. They're still there. They can hear you, they can see you, they can feel you. It's just we have to learn a different way of communicating with them. So noticing signs or what's specific to them that will help you connect with them and keep that relationship alive between realms.
Yeah. So I didn't know that about you. You're able to connect with spirit?
Yeah, well, it happened naturally. I was doing massage at the time. This was probably about 6 years ago. And I remember having this, I was just deep in the vibe, of massage and healing. And someone's loved one came through and it was so powerful. And yeah, I had a friend who worked in the room opposite me, and she's a medium. She's a psychic medium. She's just, yeah, a beautiful healer. And I said to her, I'm like, I think I literally just opened up my mediumship. And she's like, probably. And I explained to her, and she's like, yeah, like, and so it just happened very organically. And now it happens all the time. Like whoever needs to pop through in healing sessions will pop through. Um, but yeah,
That's that's really incredible.
uh, you know,
One of
if
my
someone needs to
friends,
come through, they're coming through. But
Christy, she is a massage therapist and does acupressure and some other things. And when she started working on people, she started connecting with spirits. So, people that were connected to the person she was working on would come through. And she was spooked at first, but then she got comfortable with it and is really talented.
yeah, and this is it. It's when you're in the right, when the temperature's right, and I mean temperature is in your mind, your body, everything's right, you will naturally go to those gifts. Everyone has it. And this is something that the ancients knew too, is like everyone can do these things. It's just we've shut it off for more than one reason. But this is part of I want people to understand that you have all of these gifts. You're intuitive, you're a psychic, you're a medium, you're a healer. Like everyone can do everything. That's our innate human potential. But not everyone will choose to do it. And that's okay. They don't have to. But the fact that everyone can do it is a message that I do like to share. And I know that from experience. It's like I never wanted to do mediumship, but it's like, well, whoever comes through needs to come through for that person. And it's always so divine and just sharing beautiful messages of healing and helps that person. So it really is as simple as it's just another tool of healing, I guess, and reaching someone's heart.
Yeah. Natasha, is the book that you were mentioning earlier, is it out yet or?
It's coming out at the end of this month.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be available on Amazon. So yeah, it's very, very exciting. Yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap, and I can't really believe that it's happening. Yeah, it is definitely exciting. But I just hope that people get the message that we intended out of it, and I just hope it helps comfort people around death.
And did you co-write another book, or is this the
No, this is
okay.
the one. This is the one here, but Spirit's already told me that there's more coming. It's just this is the The start of it. Yeah.
So you're at the beginning of a long writing career.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what that looks like, but I do have some things to share, and I've always seen myself as writing a book. But it never kind of came together, and I'd sit down and write certain things, and then I'd go, "Oh, but I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about that." So it was never focused into one message. So, and it's a reminder too for me and everyone is when it's right, you know, it will just happen. Like, I don't need to force anything. It's just like, it just happens. You're inspired to write about what you're supposed to write about, and you just have to be patient. Like, I'm a double Capricorn. So it's like when I have an idea in my mind and I want to do something, it's like I'll just catapult in that direction and go full steam ahead. But I have to learn how to surrender and be patient and just take one step at a time sometimes.
Well, I think you said it, but all is in perfect time.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. And, things spirit works how it wants to work. Spirit knows who needs to do what and is weaving this intricate what do you call it? Tapestry. And it's really, we're just the instrument. So I've been reminded again that we just have to do what we need to do each day. Spirit will lead us, will guide me to you, to the next person. And, this tapestry is coming together and it's beyond what we can even see. So even if we think that it's not in the right time, it is. It's just we can't see beyond our own reality,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I was very fortunate in one of the experiences I had, where I got a peek behind the veil, and I think
Mm.
that's how I resonated with you when I was
Do you wanna
listening
share
to.
that?
Yeah, I was crossing a river on a ferry in Bangladesh, and the river was very, I mean, it was the ferries in Bangladesh are not exactly safe to begin with, but a storm came and the boat started to rock, and the boat was overcrowded, so the women and children were in the inside of the ferry and the men were on the outside, and then the boat just started to tip over, like that, and then eventually I'm like, this boat's it's gonna sink, and so we were taught to jump away from the boat because if it sank when you were on it, like, it's gonna suck you in. So I was just ready to jump, and which meant I was gonna die because there was no way I was gonna survive the current and everything. So I was just trying to kinda determine where, m my body might be found, so, like, my parents would have something to, bury or whatever. There'd be some kinda closure with that, and I just remember, getting ready to time my jump, which meant that was it, and there was a moment where I was tremendously peaceful, and it felt like time had stopped.
Mm.
So there was, like, no more time, which is interesting because that's something people talk about, and I just remember being incredibly at peace, just, "Please tell my parents that I'm good.
Mm.
I'm exactly where I was supposed to be." And
Mm.
then I heard a voice just kind of shimmer in this vibration so clear and so, not loud, but loud enough to
Yeah.
catch my attention, and it just said, "Don't jump, it's not your time." And so I didn't jump because I was like, "What the heck was that?" And, I'm looking in the sky like, "Is that God? What what was this?"
Wow.
And, so I didn't, even though every fiber of my being was like, "This boat's gonna sink, man." Like, like, everyone is screaming and crying, to
Oh.
God to save us and all this stuff. Like, it was intense. And in that moment, though, there was just this tremendous feeling of peace, like, I guess it's not happening today, and sure enough, the boat limped to shore, and we were okay, and it was just
Wow.
that was my moment where it was like, I didn't die, but I got close.
Yeah, that's incredible. What a story.
But when I heard you talk about that, I'm like, that's okay. It just resonated with me. And so like, I looked at that as a synchronicity, to reach out to you. And obviously,
Yeah.
it's very beautiful to hear your story and to share your experience.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you. Yeah.
um,
There's always so many things to talk about with this discussion and
yeah,
to touch on and share with humanity. And I always love having these conversations. So it's fun.
yeah. Where can people find your work?
Yep. So I'm on YouTube. I'm really off social media for now, and I don't know how long, but I'm enjoying my presence on YouTube. So
Okay.
it's you can just find me, Natasha Black. Or if you use the @ symbol, it's Natasha J Black. And then through my website, which I'm assuming can be listed in the
Yeah,
description here. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
through that, you can find everything there, the healings that I do, the mystery school, there's other interviews that I've listed on my website as well. So yeah, it's
Okay.
very simple. But yeah, if you want to follow on YouTube as well, I upload a message or a video every week. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
Well, we will link to all that, and then I'll pay attention to when your book comes out, and then I'll
Thank you.
update it when it does, and, get that out there as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much.
Natasha, thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, to your audience, thank you for listening. And yeah, all the best on your journey.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and being with us. May you find joy, flow, and adventure on your journey. And if you got something from it, please like, share, and subscribe and or comment. It means a lot. Thank you.